So here I am again, this time about sustainability. You might have noticed that a few of us were a bit very fast because we were really hoping to do this presentation. We were afraid that we would run out of time, but we didn't. We're exactly on time, actually. Well, actually, we were running ahead of time until Stavros started. Anyway, so yeah, this time about sustainability. And I want to start my presentation actually with two questions, simple ones, nothing big and fancy. So by a show of hands, who here works for an organization that claims to care about sustainability? Simple, right? Second question, last one. Who here works for an organization that actually takes actions to become more green and lower their footprint? So, Peter, can you stand up for a second? Please, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up, please. Peter, can you take a reading? How many % is this? Again, people? Is it what, 70? Good 70? 72. 72.1%. 72.1%. We'll keep that in mind for later on, right? I didn't ask without a reason, of course, but we'll keep this in mind for later on because I'll get to that at the end of the presentation. So just to build up the suspense. I just forgot what I wanted to say, though. You'll always see that. Yeah, so over the years that I've been working for AMS-IX, there's this one thing that I always liked about it, and that is the fact that we're constantly being challenged to find new ways, better ways, to deliver our services to you and also internal operations. But this, of course, also counts for the challenge to make our operations more green. And over the 10 years I've been working for AMS-IX, I've seen nice initiatives coming around. People looking into the way of commuting to the office or working from home. Also the office itself, of course, making that one more green. And of course, then you have the engineers who like to go big and bigger, bigger, bigger. And they decided that what Leroy already said, let's take two of our biggest locations and call it a super site after we combine them into one. Which is nice because you save a lot of power on equipment. But there's, of course, the other one, which I presented earlier. You can migrate your existing hardware for a bit more power-efficient hardware, like we're doing with the Junipers. And if we look at those, yeah, I'm right, okay. If we look at those, you see here the three versions of hardware we currently have running in our network. And you can see that the Junipers, compared to the Extremes, there's not much difference of power usage, a little bit. But there's, of course, a lot more ports to be handled by the Junipers. And then we still have the much older Brocade AMS-IXes, which use a lot more power than the other two and have way less ports. And I lost my story again. Anyway, yeah, so we're migrating now all of it to the Junipers. And as part of this project, we became increasingly curious on what this would do with our power usage, or how much power saving we would have over the course of this project. So we took some data that we already collect, the power usage per data center, and we started making these nice little graphs. And after we did this first migration at Equinix AM5 last year, June, we started seeing the first dip right away. And it was quite a big dip. 70% of power usage down over the complete location of Equinix AM5. Now, it's not a fair location to use as a comparison for all the others, because at Equinix AM5 we ran into the port limitations of these AMS-IXs, so we had to install a double set of very power-hungry switches, and we migrated them back to a single set of Junipers. So this was sort of expected, not this much, but it was expected that the drop would be more. But the next two migrations were again AMS-IX locations with single sets, and we saw similar drops, or near similar, 40 to 50% power usage, or the power use went down with another 40 to 50% for these two locations as well. Now, like I said in the beginning already, the Junipers and the SLXs don't have much of a difference in power usage. This became known with the fourth migration we did, which was one of our core switches. And after the migration, we saw no difference whatsoever. So that pretty much proved the theory that they use around the same amount of power. But of course, there's more to being more efficient than just the power usage itself. It is also the ports that I mentioned before. And like you can see on the slide now, the Extreme can handle 288 ports at 100 gigabit when fully loaded, while the Juniper, with nearly the same amount of power, can handle 2.5 times more ports. So that's, of course, a big jump in efficiency. But where I want to go next is actually the other thing that's there. It's the 400 gigabit capability, something the Brocades and the Extremes cannot do, but the Junipers can. And with these migrations, each migration we do, we of course enable the 400 gigabit for you as our members to use. But we also enable them for ourselves to use in our dark fiber network. And what we did is we decided to standardize our core network on the 400 gigabit ZR Plus high power optics delivered by Smart Optics. For the simple reason that with these point-to-point connections, we can eliminate all these extra active equipment We can eliminate all the active equipment in between the links for our dark fibers. And that, of course, eliminates a lot of possibilities for outages, because less active equipment means less stuff that can break down. But it will also lower the amount of electrical to optical hops, lowering the latency again of the network. And maybe more important, or at least for my presentation it is, it also takes away a lot of power usage. And if we dive into that, we see that for the currently installed Huawei data center interconnect solution, which is on the top, you can see that we need a massive amount of optics. Then we need the M201 modules, which go into chassis, which all use a lot of power. You can see it with the arrows on the slide. If we then look at the bottom one, the 400 gigabit point-to-point, for the same amount of data, we just need 2 optics, either end of the line. And that's all. And if we then add the power usage of these systems to it, we can see that the Huawei DCI solution uses around 572 watts for a single 400 gigabit link. Ooh, all these abbreviations. And the point-to-point only needs 46 watts. It's a difference of 92% per link. And of course, if you look at it like this, it's only 526 watts from the top of my head, which doesn't sound like much, right? A lot of equipment uses a lot more. But let's put that more in perspective, and let's add some more data to it, because this, of course, is for a single link. And would I be presenting this to you if we would only migrate a single link? No. We're going to migrate a total of 96 links at 400 gigabit at this moment. There are more in the pipeline for later, but for now we have aimed for 96 links. And what we then see is that the power saving goes up to around 50,000 kilowatts. So 50,000 watts, 50 kilowatts. To put this a bit in perspective, that is similar to charging 1,000 MacBook Airs, I believe, at the same time. Just to transfer some bits and bytes between the stuff. Now, and of course, this is an hourly calculation. We like to do things more on the long term. Usually we do per month, but it looks better on the slides if I do it per year. So if we multiply this by 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, we see that it's an insane amount of power that's going to be saved of 440 megawatts. I checked it online, and that's about the same as fully charging 9,000 Tesla Model 3s. That's what we're going to save, so you can charge your cars again. Now, like I said, as part of this the Juniper migration, and as part of also this, we became increasingly curious. We started creating some graphs, and what you see here is basically the power usage of our full publication, or all the publications combined, including all the hardware we need to operate the network, over the last year. And you can clearly see that at the moment we started in June last year, there's the power going down. Now, at this moment, we saved around 21% since the start up until now. Actually, up until end of April, early May this year, a month ago. But if we look further with the experience we now have and what we saw so far, we can add an estimation to it. Is it there? Yeah. We can add an estimation to it, and then you see right away a couple of little dips from the last few MLX locations we still have to migrate. But after that, we have some bigger locations that have SLXs installed. So we don't expect much of a dip there. But it's those same SLX locations that have the DCI installed, and therefore you see that the line goes down further. Now, and I'm really curious how this will look at the end of the migration. So maybe I can stand here again, and we can put them nicely side by side, the estimation and the actuals. So that's that part. Now, of course, as part of my role, continuous improvement specialist, I look into a lot of information we gather, like the power usage and also like the data traveling over our network, like I used to present a lot on Morapi. And of course, it becomes fun when you start combining data. So what I did is I actually took a look at how much traffic goes over our platform per month and used that to calculate the amount of power we use. And what you see here is the amount of watts we use per gigabyte. And you can see it's actually far below zero. It's 0.05 at the moment. So that's the amount of watts we need to transfer 1 gigabyte of your data from the moment it reaches our network up until the moment it leaves again. So from source to destination. And what I'm curious about is how would this graph look like for IP transit? You know, it goes all over the place, a lot more hops in between. I dare to say it's at least tenfold of this, probably more. But I don't know yet, so I hope somebody will challenge me on this and have a go at it to calculate it. But if we then go back to the earlier question, the 72.1%, Now that we know that 72.1% of you actually takes action to become greener, to lower your footprint, then maybe next time you need to decide between IP transit, you can actually choose for the much greener peering. Thank you very much. Do we have? Oh, anybody else? We have time for questions.
Yeah, sure.
We have time
I see.
wow.
I was kind of challenging you there, so. No, not yet. Can we get the microphone? Yeah, just shout.
Did you ever make the calculation to multiply the wind that you make by growth of
I don't know if that was me. Sorry, I'm going to hide over here.
better? Yes. Did you ever take the moment?
I think now they turned around. No, that's a.
I'm not going to repeat.
No. Yeah.
To multiply the wind that you make in power usage by
Yeah, just do both.
the expected increase of the traffic.
Sorry,
Because
one more time. The laughing was in.
It's good that when you have a power usage and you calculate it by 100 gig or whatever, but we are not using 100 gig. We're using more power, and it's getting and we're using more traffic, and the traffic is increasing. So it would be realistic if you can, because on an environmental level, it would be more realistic if you calculate the power that we use based on the expected traffic.
So, let me see if I get this right. So, what you're asking is, what would it be on the actual traffic or compared to what we expect, right? Is that what I'm? So,
The traffic growth.
yeah. So actually, it was part of. I forgot to mention it, but it was part of my original planning to say it. Is that the more power we use, of course, or the more not power, the more traffic we consume, the more efficient it becomes. I haven't done that calculation yet, to be honest, but I can try it. You know, I have the calculations, I have the prognosis, and I can mimic it. So let me do that and come back to you.
Let's exchange those. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Will do. Thank you very much, Sven.